the foundation of a fortune. In the annals of American history, few names are as synonymous with fortune and tragedy as Winchester. The name invokes images of a storied, powerful repeating rifle, the gun that won the West. This weapon, a marvel of engineering and a symbol of manifest destiny, was an instrument that shaped a nation. It armed soldiers in the Civil War and the Spanish-American War, was used by lawmen and outlaws alike, and became a defining feature of the American frontier. The rifle's efficiency was its legacy. It was a repeater, allowing for rapid, relentless fire. But for the woman who inherited a vast fortune from its success, the Winchester rifle was not a source of pride, but a source of profound, unending grief. This is the story of Sarah Pardee Winchester, the woman who built a monument to sorrow, a sprawling, bizarre mansion that would become one of the most famous haunted houses in the world. Sarah was born into a life of privilege in New Haven, Connecticut. She was a woman of intellect and grace, a gifted artist, and a fluent speaker of several languages, including French, Italian, and Latin. She was known for her beauty and her refined taste. In 1862, she married William Wirt Winchester, the only son of the gun magnate Oliver Winchester. Their life together was a fairy tale of opulence and love. They were the very picture of American prosperity, and soon their happiness was complete with the birth of their daughter, Annie Pardee Winchester, in 1866. But this joy was tragically short-lived. In a heartbreaking turn of events, little Annie died just a few weeks after her birth from a childhood illness. The loss devastated Sarah. It was a wound that would never fully heal, leaving a permanent scar on her soul. 4 years later, her husband, William, also fell ill with tuberculosis. He passed away in 1881, leaving Sarah a widow. She was now the sole heir to half of the Winchester Repeating Arms Company, an inheritance that amounted to over $20 million, a staggering sum at the time, equivalent to over $500 million today. She also received an annual income of $1,000 a day, a fortune that would make her one of the wealthiest women in the world. But the money brought her no comfort. It was built on a legacy of death, a fortune accumulated from the lives lost to the very weapon that bore her family's name. Sarah believed that the spirits of all those killed by the Winchester rifle were now haunting her, seeking revenge. Part 2. The Call of the Spirits. Overwhelmed by her grief and the gnawing feeling that she was being haunted, Sarah sought help. She turned to a Boston-based spiritual medium. In the late 19th century, spiritualism was a popular movement, and many people sought comfort and guidance from those who claimed to communicate with the dead. The movement had captivated thousands, promising a bridge between the living and the departed. For Sarah, it was a last resort, a desperate attempt to find meaning in her immeasurable pain. She entered the séance room, a place filled with the smell of incense and the dim glow of candlelight, ready to confront the darkness that had consumed her. The medium, after performing a séance, delivered a message that would change the course of Sarah's life forever. The medium told her that she was indeed cursed. The spirits of every man, woman, and child who had fallen victim to the Winchester rifle were angry, and they were seeking revenge on the family that profited from their deaths. These were not just a few ghosts, these were thousands of restless, vengeful souls, a legion of the damned. The medium told Sarah that the only way to appease them, to find peace for herself, and to protect herself from their wrath was to move west. She was to build a house, not just for herself, but for the spirits. And the most crucial part of the message was this: she must never stop building. If the hammers ever stopped, If construction ever ceased, she would die, and the angry spirits would claim her soul. The message resonated deeply with Sarah. The medium confirmed her greatest fears and gave her a purpose. It was a bizarre, almost unbelievable directive, but for a woman consumed by grief and guilt, it was a lifeline. It was an explanation for her profound sorrow and a way to channel her immense fortune. She sold her home in New Haven, Connecticut, and set out for California, seeking a new life and a way to appease the spirits. The quest for her new home would take her to the Santa Clara Valley, a peaceful, rural area that was far away from the bustling cities of the East Coast. Here she would find the perfect place to begin her strange, never-ending project.
Part 3. The construction begins. In 1884, Sarah Winchester arrived in San Jose, California, a quiet town surrounded by orchards and farmland. She purchased an 8-room farmhouse on a sprawling 161-acre property. It was here that the legend of the Winchester Mystery House would begin. The moment she bought the property, the work began. The farmhouse was just the beginning. Carpenters and craftsmen were hired, and they began working around the clock, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. The sound of hammers and saws was a constant, unsettling presence. The construction never stopped for 38 years, a non-stop, obsessive process that would consume her life and her fortune. The building process was not a linear one. There were no architectural plans, no blueprints. Sarah would simply draw new additions on a piece of paper, sometimes even on a napkin, and hand it to her foreman. New rooms were built on top of old ones. Wings were added to wings. The house became a sprawling, illogical labyrinth, an ever-growing organism that seemed to defy the laws of architecture. The original 8-room farmhouse was swallowed whole by the new construction, disappearing into the confusing mass of the mansion. The constant hammering was a kind of prayer, a ritual that she believed kept her safe. The sheer scale of the project was staggering. At its peak, there were hundreds of workers on the property, all toiling to fulfill the bizarre wishes of a single, reclusive woman. The workers were paid exceptionally well. Some reports claim they earned 3 times the normal wage for carpenters, but they were sworn to secrecy. They lived on the property in a small encampment, their lives dictated by the constant demands of the project. The materials used were of the highest quality, expensive redwood, intricately designed stained glass, and silver and gold chandeliers. Sarah spared no expense in her quest to build a home for the spirits. The house became a testament to her obsession, a bizarre monument to a profound and deeply personal grief. The relentless work was a distraction, a way to fill the empty void left by the deaths of her husband and daughter. The constant sound of the hammers was a kind of white noise, a perpetual distraction from the silence of her grief. Part 4. The architectural absurdities. As the house grew, so did its bizarre and illogical features. The Winchester Mystery House is filled with a series of architectural absurdities that have puzzled engineers and tourists for decades. These were not mistakes. They were intentional design choices, meant to confuse the spirits that were believed to be lurking in the halls. One of the most famous features is the door to nowhere, a small door on the second floor that opens to nothing but a sheer drop into a garden below. This was meant to lead the spirits out of the house, a kind of architectural trap. It was a literal dead end for any ghost brave enough to pass through. There are staircases to ceilings, stairs that lead directly into a solid wall or a ceiling with no apparent purpose. These were meant to confuse the ghosts, to make them lose their way in the labyrinthine halls. The house is a maze of twists and turns and dead ends, a deliberate puzzle designed to foil any spectral pursuit. The number 13 is a recurring motif throughout the house. There are 13 bathrooms, many of the windows have 13 panes, and a chandelier in the grand ballroom has 13 candles. The number was seen as a powerful tool to protect against evil spirits and to represent the spiritual realm. The entire design of the house was a kind of ritual, a series of codes and symbols meant to appease the vengeful spirits. The most important room in the house was the séance room. This was a small, secluded room where Sarah would spend hours alone communicating with the spirits. It had only one entrance, but it had 3 exits, a design that was meant to allow the spirits to come and go as they pleased, while also ensuring that Sarah could make a quick escape. Sarah believed that the spirits would give her new instructions for the house, and she would emerge from the room with new designs, drawn on a napkin or a scrap of paper, to hand it to her foreman. Another bizarre feature was the switchback staircase, a series of 44 risers that only ascended 9 feet. This was meant to be easy on Sarah's arthritic knees, but also served as a way to disorient any malevolent spirits who were trying to follow her. The house was a living, breathing testament to her unique and deeply personal belief system.
Part 5. Life inside the labyrinth. Life inside the Winchester Mystery House was as strange and illogical as the house itself. Sarah was a solitary and reclusive woman, and she rarely saw her staff. She communicated with her foreman through written notes, and she would never meet with her contractors directly. The workers were paid well, but they were sworn to secrecy. They were a small army of men whose sole purpose was to fulfill the strange wishes of a grieving, eccentric widow. The sound of hammers and saws was a constant presence, a kind of perpetual motion that defined life on the property. Sarah herself was a ghost in her own mansion. She would sleep in a different bedroom every night, believing that the ghosts would be unable to find her and harm her if she was constantly moving. Her house was a labyrinth of over 160 rooms, and she would often get lost in her own mansion. It was said that she would keep a small bell in her pocket, and if she ever got lost, she would ring it for her servants to come and find her. Her only companion was her dog, and she would spend hours with him, but she was deeply, profoundly alone. The perpetual dust and noise of the construction must have been a constant irritant, a reminder of her never-ending quest. Despite her immense wealth, Sarah lived a simple, almost ascetic life. She was a vegetarian, and her meals were simple. She was also a brilliant businesswoman, and she managed her vast fortune with an iron fist. She was known to be a charitable woman, often donating money to local causes and paying for the medical care of her staff's families. This kindness stood in stark contrast to the bizarre, frightening nature of her home. She was not a madwoman. She was a woman consumed by a very specific, very personal grief. The house was her therapy, a way to deal with the overwhelming sorrow of losing her daughter and her husband. The constant construction was a way to fill the void, a perpetual distraction from her pain. The house was a physical manifestation of her psychological state, a labyrinth of grief, guilt, and fear. Part 6. The Great Earthquake. The constant construction was a way for Sarah to cope with her grief, but it was also a way for her to appease the spirits. She believed that as long as the work continued, she would be safe. But on April 18, 1906, her beliefs were put to the ultimate test. The Great San Francisco Earthquake, one of the most powerful and destructive earthquakes in American history, struck. The ground shook violently and the entire house trembled. The sound was deafening, a monstrous groan of twisting wood and shattering glass. The magnificent 7-story tower that was being built at the front of the house, a testament to her ambition, collapsed. Windows shattered, walls crumbled, and the entire structure groaned under the immense strain. Sarah was in her private séance room when the earthquake struck. The room was not damaged, but a massive fireplace in a nearby room was severely damaged. Sarah was trapped inside the house, and her servants had to rescue her.
She was terrified. She believed that the spirits were angry, that the earthquake was a warning. She believed that the spirits had tried to kill her and that the collapse of the tower was a sign of their displeasure. The spirits, she believed, were angry because she was building so quickly, that she was building rooms for the living, not for the dead. She believed they were angry because she was getting too ambitious, trying to create a physical monument that was too grand, too defiant. The earthquake was a wake-up call, a chilling reminder that the spirits were in charge and that she was merely a servant to their bizarre whims. The earthquake changed her approach to the house. From that day on, she ordered that all the damaged parts of the house be sealed off. Rooms were sealed shut, windows were boarded up, and staircases were closed off, forever preserving the damage of that day. She stopped building upward and she began to build outward. The damaged tower, once a symbol of her ambition, was never repaired. It was left in its collapsed state, a permanent monument to her fear. She also stopped building a grand ballroom, believing the spirits did not want her to have a place for social gatherings. It was a new phase of construction, a more frantic and fearful one, that would continue until her last breath. Part 7. The Aftermath and Legacy. The construction continued for another 16 years until Sarah Winchester's death in 1922. She passed away in her sleep at the age of 83. The day after she died, the hammers fell silent for the first time in 38 years. The house, which was once a sprawling monument to her grief, was now an empty, silent museum. The workers were paid off, and the house was left to its own devices. No one in the Winchester family wanted the mansion. It was a bizarre, illogical money pit, a monument to a grief they did not understand. The house was eventually sold at auction for a pittance, and it was soon turned into a tourist attraction, a place where people could come and witness the strange and unsettling legacy of a wealthy widow. Today, the Winchester Mystery House is one of the most famous tourist attractions in California. The house is a sprawling labyrinth of over 160 rooms, with hundreds of doors, windows, and staircases. Tourists come from all over the world to walk through its strange, confusing halls and to hear the story of the woman who built it. The house is a masterpiece of architectural insanity, a testament to the power of human grief. But the question remains, is the house truly haunted? Over the years, many people have claimed to have experienced strange things in the house. Tourists and staff have reported hearing disembodied footsteps, doors opening and closing on their own, and strange voices in the halls. The most active areas are said to be the Blue Room, where the spirit of a handyman is said to linger, and the Grand Ballroom, where a phantom voice has been heard. Ghost hunters and paranormal investigators have conducted countless investigations, and many have claimed to have found evidence of paranormal activity. The ghosts of the Winchester rifle victims are said to still roam the halls, lost and confused in the bizarre labyrinth that was built for them. But others believe that the house is simply a testament to a deeply eccentric, grieving woman, and that the strange phenomena can be explained by the house's unique design, its creaking floors, and the natural drafts. The story of the Winchester Mystery House is not just a ghost story. It is a human story. It is a story about the power of grief, the guilt of a legacy, and the madness of a broken heart. The house may or may not be haunted, but its story is. The ghosts of the past, of a lost daughter and a dead husband, will forever haunt the halls of this bizarre, beautiful, and chilling mansion.